Good morning, St. Genevieve class. How are you doing this fine day? I hope you're all well. Now, if you remember on Tuesday, my challenge to you was to go on a bug hunt. Now, did you? Now, if you did, have you listed all of the insects and invertebrates that you discovered? Remember, we were looking for mini beasts. We spoke about the fact on Tuesday that mini beasts are all called invertebrates. Can you remember what that means? That's right, invertebrate means it doesn't have a spine or a backbone. And humans, if you feel, we definitely have a spine or a backbone, which means we're vertebrates. So on your bug hunt, if you went to the park or in your garden or a countryside walk, if you were lucky enough, or maybe you were the intrepid explorer that went on the internet to try to discover as many insects or mini beasts as you could. Now, if you remember, I asked you to keep a record or make a table, keep a log of all of the different types of mini beasts you found or discovered. I just wanted to show you, I'm just going to move you for a second. Pop this little fella over here. We can see the column that I'd like to focus on today is this one, the type of invertebrate. So you can see the type of invertebrate is also known as the classification. So if we say the name or the species of our mini beast was ladybird, species being a scientific term here, scientific term for where it lives is the microhabitat. So we saw the ladybird on a bush. How many did we see? Or what was the abundance of ladybirds? There were 4 ladybirds together. Let's skip to this column for a moment. What it looked like, so remember you can make a drawing and any specific details that are specific to that creature. Red body with black spots, 6 legs. But this column here, classification. So we can see one type of invertebrate can be classified as insect. But what about the others? So today we're looking at invertebrate classification. And as I said on Tuesday, the marvelous thing about this is you can pause, hit the pause button if I go too quickly, so you can really look and take in what I'm showing you and sharing with you. Okay, species and variation. There are nearly 2 million different species of living things. Not all animals in a species are the same. This is called variation. So when animals of the same species are slightly different, that's called variation, create a variety. In living things, some variation is genetic. This means they have inherited the way they look from their parents. The animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is divided into 2 smaller groups. Invertebrates, animals without a backbone, or vertebrates, animals with a backbone. Invertebrates. More than 98% of all animals are invertebrates. That's quite astounding. Just take that in for a second. More than 98% of all animals are invertebrates. Invertebrates do not have an internal skeleton made of bone. Some have a hard outer shell, like insects and crustaceans. There are many types of invertebrates. The most common invertebrates are mollusks and arthropods. So those are the scientific names for the classification of the 2 most common invertebrates. You may know them as something else, but the scientific name for that group, that type, are mollusks and arthropods. Do you maybe know? Can you give me an example maybe of a mollusk or maybe an arthropod? What do you think they might be? Going on. Now, on your bug hunt, when you were looking for your mini beasts, I'm just going to move you a bit closer. We can see there are different types of insect here. You may have spotted bees, wasps, or ants. You may have spotted butterflies or moths. You may have spotted beetles. You may have spotted true bugs. You may have spotted true flies. You may even have spotted crickets, grasshoppers, or earwigs. But thinking of mini beasts as a whole, or invertebrates as a whole, we have insects, but did you spot any snails or slugs? Snails are an example of a mollusk. Did you spot any spiders? Spiders are an example of arachnids. Did you spot any worms? Lots of slimy worms everywhere, especially in the garden. Be careful of them when you're cutting the grass. Any crustaceans? Woodlice are a prime example of a crustacean. Any myriapods? Any centipedes or millipedes? Or did you spot any insect larvae? Which is when insects lay eggs. Most insects reproduce by laying eggs. The young that hatch from the eggs are either larvae or nymphs, which is a smaller version of the adults. Just going to pop you back there. Now, as I said, classification. So this is the column we're focusing on today, the type of invertebrate or classification. We can see one type is called insect. But what about the others? There are 5 classifications of invertebrate. Now, number 1 is a silent C. It's a cnidarian. So cnidarians. Number 2 are worms. Number 3 are mollusks. Number 4 is echinoderm. And number 5 is arthropod. But what do these mean? What are they? Arthropods are made up of 4 smaller groups. So if you're an arthropod, you can be an insect, a crustacean, an arachnid, or a myriapod. And we've already seen some examples of those. Back to number 1, cnidarians. Now, cnidarians, most of these live in the sea. Jellyfish and sea anemone are common examples. They have a sac-like body with one opening. Tentacles with stinging cells surround the mouth. They paralyze prey and push it into the mouth. The sea anemone attaches to rocks using a sucker. Jellyfish swim by opening and closing like an umbrella. So, 3 key facts. They live in water, which makes them aquatic. They have tentacles with stinging cells to catch food, and they are generally symmetrical. Number 2, worms. There are about 9,000 species of worms known today, including annelids and leeches. Annelids have bodies that are divided into segments. Some may have long bristles. Others have shorter bristles and seem smooth, like the earthworms shown here. 3 key facts for worms. They all have a flattened body, no segments, and they glide using small hairs for movement. Mollusks. Mollusks were among the first inhabitants of the earth. Some mollusks live on land, such as the snail and slug. Other mollusks live in water, such as the oyster, mussel, clam, squid, and octopus. Land-living mollusks, like the snail, move slowly on a flat sole called a foot. Other ocean-living mollusks, like the oyster, attach themselves to rocks or other surfaces. They feed by filtering small food particles from water that flows through them. 3 key facts for mollusks. The body is not in segments. Some have shells. They move around on a muscular foot. Going on again. Echinoderms. Echinoderms are marine animals that live in the ocean. They have arms or spines that radiate from the center of their body. You can see the starfish there, prime example. The central body contains their organs and their mouth for feeding. Sea stars, commonly known as starfish, have 5 or more arms attached to their body. Sea urchins have many spines connected to their body. These spines help to protect them from predators. 3 key facts. Echinoderms, 5 arms or star-shaped pattern on their bodies. They do not have blood, only live in salt water. Arthropods. Now these are the largest group of invertebrates. Arthropods are split into 4 smaller groups. Their body is covered with an exoskeleton. So an exoskeleton is like a harder shell that covers the outer part of the body. They have antennae or feelers on their head. See this little guy here? 1 would be an antenna, 2 is antennae. They have jointed legs and their bodies are in segments. So you can see the spider here. There's one part of his body here and the second part, so their bodies are split into segments. 3 key facts for arthropods. Jointed legs. The body has a hard outer skeleton or an exoskeleton. And they're divided into 4 groups: insects, crustaceans, arachnids, myriapods. So the first group, insects. Insects are the largest group of arthropods. There are over 800,000 different types of insects. Insects are very adaptable, living almost everywhere in the world. Insects have an exoskeleton that covers their entire body. An insect's body consists of 3 parts: head, thorax, and abdomen. The insect's head has a pair of antennae and a pair of compound eyes. Arachnids. Common arachnids are spiders, scorpions, ticks, and mites. Like other arthropods, the arachnids have a hard exoskeleton. Spiders have 8 legs, and most also have 8 eyes. Spiders have fangs that are used to inject poison to paralyze or kill their prey. Many spiders can produce silk threads to spin webs. Scorpions are the largest arachnids, some reaching over 8 inches in length. Crustaceans. Most crustaceans live in water, apart from woodlice. The crab, lobster, and barnacle are common crustaceans. Crustaceans have a head and abdomen. The head has antennae, which are part of their sensory system. The abdomen includes the heart, digestive system, and reproductive system. Many crustaceans also have claws that help with crawling and eating. Myriapods. These are the centipedes and millipedes. They have long bodies made up of lots of segments. Centipedes are fast-moving carnivores. Millipedes are slow-moving herbivores. So carnivores eat meat. Centipedes would eat other insects, therefore. And millipedes are herbivores, so they would eat vegetation, grass and things. If a centipede and a millipede had the same number of body segments, the millipede would have twice as many legs. So, just to finish today, I know that was a lot to take in. I'm just going to show you a couple of animals, and can you work out what they are? Just to help, I have our key facts laid out here. So an Idarian lives in water, has tentacles with stinging cells to catch food, symmetrical. Worms, long tube-shaped body, body made up of segments, moved by the contraction and relaxation of muscles. Mollusks, bodies not in segments, some have shells, they move around in muscular foot. Echinoderms have 5 arms or star-shaped pattern on their body, do not have blood, only live in salt water, and arthropods have jointed legs. The body has a hard outer skeleton or an exoskeleton. It's divided into 4 groups: insects, crustaceans, arachnids, and myriapods. So I'm going to show you a couple of images, and can you guess what classification of mini beast this one is? So, what can we see here? Well, I can see, what do you reckon? Jointed legs. The body has a hard outer skeleton. So I think this is an arthropod, or more specifically, an insect. Let's have a look. Yay! Right, next one. What can we see here? Segmented body, 8 legs. Again, what do you reckon? Arthropod? Or more specifically, remember another A word? Arachnid. And one last one. What do we think here? If I'm not mistaken, I can see the most incredible antennae here. A hard exoskeleton and jointed legs again. You can see that bend there, that join. And it looks as though that might be underwater. So what do we think? What do you reckon? A crustacean. Great stuff. I'm just going to do one last one for you to guess yourself. What do you reckon? This is myriapod. Did you guess? Great stuff. Okay, so today we have been thinking about the classification of invertebrates. Just to finish, a classification of chapter 2 of Charlotte's Web. Now, I asked you on Tuesday what the girl was called. The girl is called Fern. Her little pig that she adopts is called Wilbur. Question for chapter 2 though, if you are now reading this book. Fern becomes a bit worried when Wilbur has to sleep outside in a little box that she's made for him. But she's told that he does something to keep warm at night. Your question is, what does he do to keep warm at night? And finally, a last question for you guys as well. We spoke about insects, thinking about asking those questions and answering questions to become a better scientist, to become a true scientist. Some questions for you to finish. What makes an insect an insect? What's special about its body and its legs? What's special about its head and eyes? And if you were to create or invent your own insect, how would you make sure it was classified as an insect? But what would it become? What would it look like? What would it do? How would it be? Okay, so get thinking, and I'll join you again next week with some more answers and lots more questions. So until then, take care, and I'll see you soon.